But the women in the Big Ten tournament absolutely rolled on day one. Shot 55% from the field, made 13 threes, beat Rutgers 84-60. That is now a few 20-win seasons for Amy Williams. That's now multiple years going where they've got at least a win in the Big Ten tournament. This team was, I believe, on the bubble as a first four bye. They're in. You've got into the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
You've got 20 wins. You were over 500 in league play. This team is into the NCAA tournament, and there's still work that they want to get done this week, in particular, taking on Illinois today, and then seeing how this can play out over the next couple of days. But you check that box. Nebraska women's basketball is back in the big dance.
100%. I don't see any possible way that even if they were to get shellacked by Illinois tonight, that they wouldn't make it in. You're 20-10. This is the one thing, especially down the stretch, where I think Nebraska's got a couple of things working for them. Even if they were to have a little bit of a slip up, even last night, I thought after they beat Northwestern that they were 95% in. Now, if they would have gotten smoked by Rutgers last night, a team that's obviously struggled a lot, okay, maybe there would be a little bit of uneasiness come Selection Sunday. But when I look at Nebraska right now, that injury situation, I still think is going to be a big part of their case. And so I always felt like Nebraska, if they were on the bubble, squarely on the bubble where you can make a case for or against, I always thought the injury thing was going to help them, that despite these devastating injuries, and even the ones that were short stints, like the Britt Prince, the way that Amy Williams has navigated this team through all of that to a 20-win season is extremely impressive. And I think that would have been, I think there would have been a response kindly to that one. I really do. Now, I think this is where it becomes fun for Nebraska, because I think, look, there's no avoiding it. And I don't even think as a coaching staff, you're like, hey, do not look at bracketologies or don't even discuss it. I think anymore, you're like, hey, you know what? You're going to do that as long as you're showing up when we need you to show up for the basketball games and in the preparation and the scouting and all that. We're good. But now I think they all understand, okay, we didn't have that weird, awkward slip up we're in. Now it's time to think bigger from a seeding standpoint, from the Big Ten tournament standpoint. You have a chance to avenge a earlier season loss to Illinois. Illinois is a good team, but there's some things that Nebraska did last night. Now, albeit I understand the opponent wasn't the strongest, but when you start to look at the bench production that Nebraska is getting, not just by Rimdahl, but all of a sudden Hargrove last night too, there's different things about this team that I always wondered, and Kaleb, you go to so many of these too. I always wondered at what point when this team learned how to play with the roster that they had, knowing that Potts isn't coming back, knowing that Widener's not coming back, the roster that they had, when they would start meshing. And then you start to see glimpses of that, and then all of a sudden, Britt Prince goes out for a short period of time, and so then you have to reshuffle it again. But the group that you saw last night, and now 2 games in a row against teams that they should do this against, but they did do it. They get out to a great start. They never look back. You get contributions from both your starters. Your veterans are playing the way they should. Alexis Markowski has been outstanding. And then you look at what you're getting from a bench production. And I think between all of those things right there, that should get you excited. I think for this matchup tonight, Nebraska's got to be feeling, even though they lost to Illinois early in the season by double digits, I think they got to be feeling pretty confident going into tonight.
I think they do. Alexis Markowski grabs her 52nd double-double. Program record continues to extend there. What I'm most impressed about with where the contributions continue to come, obviously there's Alexis Markowski. And obviously Birdie Rimdahl, your grad transfer who's come in. So those two are going to be gone next year. And you get minutes from Kendall Coley and Kendall Moriarty. Those are a couple of your seniors. They'll be gone next year. A lot of the names that you said, Petrie, Nisley, Callan Hake, obviously Britt Prince, Petra Bojan, who hit a 3 yesterday, the heir apparent to Alexis Markowski inside. They're all back. And other than Hake, they're back with multiple years on top of Natalie Potts next year and Allison Widener hopefully all rehabbed and ready to go and get a full season in before she's out of here. That's next year, but it's so impressive to see what Amy Williams has done with this team. And I remember when Potts went down, my initial thought was the ceiling on this team is bubble. The ceiling on this team is bubble. You're hoping to make the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
I think they're squarely in. ESPN bracketology as of this morning has Nebraska on the last 4 buys still. By the way, along with Oregon and Indiana, and Washington and Minnesota are on the last 4 in. ESPN is projecting the Big Ten to get 13 teams in the women's tournament. But I think this is one of the best coaching jobs. And Matt Coatney said it the other day. This is one of the best coaching jobs Amy Williams has done with meshing all of this talent in a way that you didn't anticipate before the season. And also, like, Amy Williams' daughter wasn't even playing this year. And that's someone who definitely could have contributed had she been healthy because of the guards and the wing losses of Widener and Potts. So you go into today, it's a 5:30 tip on Big Ten Network against Illinois. Obviously, you want to win the game. You want to keep advancing. But I think this team is, depending on the matchup, they've got a chance to get a win, potentially 2, get to that second weekend in the NCAA tournament. It's so matchup dependent,
right?
The NCAA tournament. They didn't match up well a couple of years ago against Gonzaga. That was just really rough for them. Last year, they were able to go 1-1, get into the second round. I'm interested to see what those matchups do look like for this team, because I'll just say, if they win one game, well, even without winning it, I think this is the best coaching job Amy Williams has done. But if they win a game in the tournament, this is far and away the best coaching job Amy Williams has done in Lincoln, with so much potential coming back for the future.
Yeah, Cody brought up something earlier in the week that I thought was right on, but it also, I think it furthers your point and your opinion, which I agree with, of the job that Amy has done. And that is, you lose a player, an all-everything player like Jazz Shelley from a year ago. So you're already wondering, okay, how are we going to regroup? Who's gonna step up and be that type of player for us? And then right out of the gate, you're hit with the Natalie Potts news. And then shortly after that, you're hit with the Allison Widener news, which I think really affected this team from the standpoint of, on the court, but also from the overall human perspective of, my gosh, can this girl just please get a positive break? And so you know how close that team is and that staff is. And so to navigate through all of that, not just trying to replace a player that meant so much to your team for so long that just unfortunately didn't have any eligibility left, but then you get hit with those injuries. So how do you not only keep this team together? There's the schematics of it. There's what is our lineup going to look like? Where we're going to get our points? Where we're going to make our defensive stops? But also keeping this team's heads where they need to be throughout the season. And that's, I think, also to say the tough times that they had, where they had a couple of short losing streaks. How do you get them out of that? Because you can hit that losing streak at some point and it can spiral where you can't find yourself back out of it. And all of a sudden you've played yourself out of the NCAA tournament. And I know we're going to probably get to one of those teams that might be doing that right now, but that's a lot tougher than what people would think, where, they're good players. They'll just figure it out and they'll get that one win. And all of a sudden the light switch goes on. That's not necessarily the case, especially when you've dealt with some of the hardships when it comes to the injury bug that this team has, on top of losing your best player from a year ago because she just graduated. So I think Amy understands the right buttons to push when it comes to this team. And when we think of how these coaches really know their players and know how to go about motivating them and know how to keep them grounded when they need to be grounded and to lift them up when they need to be lifted up, I think Amy Williams continues to prove that she does that as good as anybody.